insulin resistance and pre-diabetics, that there's a lot of people in their 40s that have it, that are insulin resistant. It's not quite diabetes 2, but they're insulin resistant. So, yeah, people that are comorbid type, they might be younger people that have these pre-existing. They don't know. So anyways, we're starting the Tai Chi Paradigm class this morning. We only have the two of us in the studio, so we'll go through the exercises and hopefully everything's going good. I think we're on, so we're going to start off shoulder width, hands up like this, and then turn it out. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. To the side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay? Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. To your left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. To your left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. 2, 3. To your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands on your waist. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center cross. Knees. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Hands on your waist. Neck turning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center. Tilt to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Sana. Rotating. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sana. Pull in. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Spread your feet. Turn your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, turn, stretch it out. Switch. 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 Straighten the front knee. Switch. 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 Center. Okay. Yeah, that's So sort of getting this kind of just, if you can shift over a little like this, actually it allows this to close a little more if you can, if you don't have a knee problem. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So. If you close this joint, but you have a knee problem, if you close the joint, you actually take the muscular tension out of the knee. Because when you're partially down, then this is tense, holding you in that position. So when you sit into it, it releases the muscle, and then yeah, it's because you have tension in it and you're holding it, and the ligaments that tie to the knee are getting stressed because it's holding you there. But when you take the tension out of it from dropping into it, then you just relax. Yeah. So this is what, um, yeah. Well, that's during the phase while it's like that, and this is holding you up. So when you shift over and you sit into it, but it does take your knee some. So when you do the chair thing to work your knee to kind of fold it, then it helps you sit into it because this is the relaxed position. Then you can stretch here. Yeah. See, when I talk about the conflict in movement is tension, it's the resistance of the muscle not letting go. That's when you're prone to get injuries because the muscle, just like your ankle, if you snap it, you sprain it. But the muscle wants you to not bend, so it tenses, and then when it tenses and you put force on it, that's where you tear the muscle. But if it actually just goes with it, it's it's better. Yeah. So, anyways, we can shake it out. Yeah. So you can do that with a chair. If no, like what? Did, have you done that? I showed you before holding it. I showed Nan. Yeah. Or you can do one leg at a time to just fold the knee. So, anyways, all right. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Okay. Shoulder roll. Reverse. And center. Okay. Press. Release. Exhale. Inhale. And stop. Hands up. Pull in. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, wrists. reverse. And center. Okay, palms down, bigger circle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, shake it out. Okay, balancing. We go side to side. Okay, so here. And drop the hands. We're going to lift up. And center. Okay. How about insert needle? So we're going to lift. And we switch other side. And center. Okay. Check it out. Okay, let's swing. Okay, switch. And center. Okay. Side to side. Okay. Switch. Check it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Okay, hands here. Silk grilling. Okay, switch. And okay, cross. Open and close. Switch. Sana. Circular movements. Okay, lower hoop. Shoulder height. Elbows down. Lower. Palms down. Extend. Okay. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay. Diagonal flying. switch. Okay, center, cloud hands. Okay, palms down. Lift up, carry tiger to the mountain. Infinity sign. And form the fists. Okay, palms together. Strum the lute. and draw the bow. Okay, fan to the back. Okay, raise the hand. Okay, palms down, hands up. Deep breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, good. So we'll go through the sequence. See what time is 10:15. Yeah. So we can do the short form, then we'll do the long form, then we'll go over, some of the things that support the form. Preparation. breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Good. So go through the long form first, and then we'll. All right. All right, ready? Feet parallel. Preparation. Sorry. Okay, deep breathing. So last week we barely got through the form. We just did a lot of dialogue between what's happening here and the camera. So there's just the two of us here. So maybe we should just do a couple of Q&As, question and answers for newer people or people that actually have been doing, following, to understand sort of where do you go from here when we start to learn the sequence. So what do you think, Mara? She'll ask a question or maybe something that's in your mind. No, I don't have any. At some point we will, because I'm actually going to do some of these classes and tie it to a Zoom format at the same time. Then the end of maybe the last 10 minutes, or maybe depending on how it works, maybe we can get some questions from a few people. But so yeah, and what drew you to Tai Chi? Yeah, why? What initially? I kind of remember, but the truth. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. So, that's interesting. Mara was kind of referred to the school. Most traditional schools don't do a lot of advertising, as you probably would know, or the commercial schools do a lot. I've been here for almost 26 years. People who still come, when they did come, would say, "How long you been here?" Because no one knew I was here. So, it's usually through word of mouth, and it sort of fills a sort of a niche of people that have an interest in wellness, like Mara does, and people that are prescribed it, that maybe they're a little older and they're losing their balance and so forth. So doctors, physical therapists, a lot of people in those professions tend to direct people into something like Tai Chi, because it's really not as popular as something like yoga, but because it takes a certain personality to go through this, and And the kind of people that I've known that came through here over the years who have stayed are generally musicians, artists, mathematicians, people in the computer field. Um, it's across the board, but believe it or not, people in the wellness field or the medical field, the tendency is not doing this. And I think partially, even though they refer people to doing this, it's time consuming. And I think their life is so busy that they always feel they don't have the time to do this. And this is, I address a lot of the things that that I know about, wellness and physiology and exercise from my experience. And a lot of it's tied to science. But the thing is, even friends that are physicians, or even I have a friend that's a neurologist, they know the stuff that I'm talking about is actually logical and it's practical. But the thing is, will they step up to the plate and do it? Maybe at some point, but who knows? But it is a discipline in the sense that, I call it prevention of age-related degeneration. And, the degeneration is not so much typically to age unless you have some genetic or unless you have some kind of illness. I'm talking about the average person that's somewhat together as they get older. If you maintain it, it's easy to maintain something than to go from this extreme to this extreme. So that's just kind of the way it is, because the human body kind of works off of a lifestyle and habits. So habits are created. So if you never move, you don't have those habits. So people that don't exercise don't like to exercise. They've never created the discipline or the wherewithal to do it. And when we do something like this, you have to like it, or you have to enjoy doing it. So most of the people that come here enjoy it and they get something out of it. Now, at what age can you do this? Well, it's probably better to start when you're in your late 40s or maybe 50s, if anything, but because you need some time to go through the process. So when you start later, there's a bigger learning curve and a physical curve. But it depends how fit you are to begin with. So Mara, if you don't mind me giving your age out there, Mara is 79. She's going to be 80 next week, next year. So Mara's going to be 80 next year. So looking in the mirror, does she look like she's 80 years old? Or, she's doing very well, but she actually enjoys this, and it actually has helped her a lot. And we have many students that are in their 70s that have done this for 20 years. Mara's actually done this for about 8 or 10. Going on 10 years. I remember day one when we were working over there, and she just kept telling me, because we did a few privates, and she worked on the kicks and so forth, and we revisit some of those postures like in the last couple of months. And, 10 years ago, she went through that, and, it was a private, and we went through, like, Beat the Tiger and some of the kicks. I remember going through that, and, I always talk about geometry of position, and she said, geez, I didn't take this. I hate math. Why are we well, actually, yeah, she swore. Yeah, she has a great extent in her vocabulary with words that we can't put across the air. But the thing is, we just know that, she enjoys it for other reasons besides from the profanities and stuff during the practice. Yeah, the people. So it becomes a community. So that's kind of, the kind of personalities that do this. It's not for everyone. I wish it was for everyone, then things would be booming. But, doing it so long, I just realized that, it's almost like pulling teeth to try to get someone to do it. It is, yeah. And she's a therapist, so she would know that it's good for the mental health. And because she probably works with people that kind of need this, but they won't do it. They do? They do Tai Chi? Oh, that's great. Yeah. 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 So people that are, pretty involved with the wellness side of things. So that we were just saying that people in the wellness profession tendency is not to do this, whereas all the people that are, on a professional level, yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an experience, right? You don't know until you actually do it, and then when you do it, if you there's so many people because I've taught at senior centers. I've said, "Oh, I've done Tai Chi before," but did you do Tai Chi? That's that's sort of like oh, I saw that, or but did you really see it, or even listening, did you hear it? There's a difference. So anyway, so let's go through something that would help our forms, right? So a lot of times I talk about direction of movement and compatible with, your appendages. So, we talk about right and left. So the opening movements, we shift one way and then we shift the other way. And this is something that, so that's sort of a coordination that's built. But the thing is, your body has to pick up a sense of right and left. So we do that in our drills. Our drills actually are designed not just to go through this motion. It's the beginning for a new person, and it becomes a discovery later on. So what do you discover? How the body moves in space, how it moves from left to right, the compatibility of that motion, and the shapes. Even though I talk about geometry, it just talks about the triangle. The shape of your limb, your arms, is really the structure. Because our body is made up of structural integrity through skeletal structure positioning. So for functionality, you have to have your joints in a certain position to do certain things. In this case, we're doing strum the lute. In this case, we're doing horizontal elbow. So while vertical and horizontal are pretty simple to understand, the transitional side of it is what's difficult to get to. So that's a phasing in. So you have the vertical, which is right and left. You also have horizontal, that's right and left. So that appears at different points in the postures or different postures. So here, when we sink, that's a direction of downward. So when we sink, we have to let go and relax. And when we relax, we have to develop a feeling of settling into the position. And what is that idea of settling? Settling is releasing tension so your body feels like it's descending, right? And then when you change the directions, which is going forward, you create this position as a transition from vertical horizontal as one continuous action. So movements actually become more pivotal than just going there. So that pivotal transition is building sort of the continuity and the framework of doing this on this side, and on this side we were doing this. Now when we sit back, I turn, right? But I turn my hips so that I can turn my foot. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction in some instances, but for every right and left movement, it allows you to move the opposite way. So this is a concept, but your body has to become familiar with right and left. Because movements are a motor skill. If you don't program these movements into your action, how does your body know? Your body really doesn't know anything. It's sort of your mind is an empty vessel, and you have to fill it with information. So information can be filled, every time you empty it, depending on what your consciousness and what your focus is. If you're in cooking, your focus is on that. If you're walking, your consciousness is maybe just clearing your thoughts or maybe thinking of other things, but you're on walking. When you're doing Tai Chi, that vessel has to be emptied to take in this knowledge. And this vessel can hold vast amounts of information, but you have to be in the moment. That's kind of like what meditation is. You're in the moment and you're focused on what you're doing. So that's like for stress relief, it's a good thing because you're taking yourself out of the stressful environment that your mind thinks it's in, or your body thinks it's in. So that's where all the tension comes from, and the anxiety and all that stuff that happens to people that can't deal with it, coping. So when we're doing movements, we're just dealing with our space, and we learn to move right and left and then turn in a direction. So when I speak of proprioception and spatial awareness, how the body knows to go into these positions, and there's a tremendous amount of body control. So what is body control? You see what happens here? When we go like this, and then I slant, everything comes down. Now you see the diagonals? See my arms in a diagonal? I went from here to here to here to here. So what happens? This is open, and I sink my elbow, it starts to close. This is rounded, then elongates. You see how, as a transition, and then I move this foot, and I shift, and I open on the diagonal, and I move this foot up. Then I'm ready to go like this, vertical. I go into the movement, and my arm just folded, and I went horizontal. Now because I'm going to go down before I go up, I get a feeling of this. So see, the lower hoop had just turned down. And then I step up to this parallel stance, and then I lift. So let's just look at that action. If we're here, and I shift, and then I'm here, that's kind of like when we're doing cloud hands, we have that little adjustment. We step up to here, then I turn, I sink and fold, and then the hand's going to come to here. So while I start to go forward, my body starts to straighten. Meanwhile, I was in this sort of rounded position. Okay, so I'm here, I'm in the forward position, then I'm in this rounded position like I'm bending forward before I lift. And then I turn my hands up. So the lifting, the turning, most of that happens in your torso. So the skeleton, your torso has a group of bones here, your ribs. Then you have a sternum that folds, and then you have the mid-back that kind of rounds out. Then you have this lower lumbar, it kind of twists over here. But most of these areas don't move in the average person because, because because it's a joint. When you go like this, you can, So if you look at my back when I bend forward, you see it rounding over here. Well, if this rounds, it goes out. This has to come in. And there's a contraction here right around the solar plex, but it's an action that comes from bending, and then you lift up. So if you're bending forward and you're lifting up, that's a straightening and rounding of the back. So that has to be somewhat compatible with the direction of your movement. You know, how many backs are not moved like that voluntarily? Backs are there, but they don't do a lot. They don't have a controlled motor skill action, but it's there because it does what it's supposed to typically do, is house all the innards, right? It's just there and it controls it, and then your spine has all the nerves that go through there. But the thing is to actually move your back a certain way, which includes your shoulder blades, your upper shoulder girdle, and this whole area, that becomes like quadrants of your body that have moves sectionally and segmented so that it creates structural integrity of positions. So on a functionality side of it, it's very important. We don't pay attention to a lot of those things because we just do it. You know, if you have a very physical type of a job and you have to move your body all the time, you're doing it because you're creating a certain action that does the job. But you don't pay attention to what the body actually does. But if you do a certain kind of physical job that requires repetitive motion, your body will adapt and it actually can do it all day long. You know, like people that do some of these production type jobs back in the day, they would sit there for 8 hours or 7 or 8 hours doing, you know, this type of work and do it all day long. Eventually the body could break down, but the thing is, it doesn't break down as fast as, you know, as fast as you would think, because your body adapts and knows how to do certain things, and you can do it for probably a few decades before you decide that you don't want to do it anymore. That's kind of what happens when you retire, I guess. But the thing is, when we're doing this type of thing, when we're bending and lifting, you know, you're not doing anything obviously functional at that point, right? It's not very obvious that you're doing something. But when you go to pick up a box, or you bend over to do something, or squat down, then there's real functionality. It's tangible. When we're doing things in space, you don't really feel what the body's doing completely in the beginning until you start to recognize how the body manipulates its joints, because there's a constant opening and closing, expanding and contracting of your joints. So when you fold your hand like this, that's bending. When you fold your knees like this, that's sinking. So if that knee folds and this knee and the elbow folds, when we talk about the relationship between your elbows and knees, we have sink the elbow, relax the knees. So they're kind of folding and unfolding simultaneously. You say, well, folding, closing, how does this close? I brought this up the other day. Well, if you take your hip bone and you get closer to your ankle, it's kind of a closing mechanism, right? If my shin is folding like this, the shin bone and the top of my foot is closing. If I bring my hip in like this, or my foot in like this, then this upper bone turns in, it's closing. If I turn it out like this, it's opening. So opening and closing, rising and falling, turning right and left, going forward and back, are all actions that kind of work together to balance. So when we speak of balance, it's not just standing there. We balance through motion. So if I move right and I move left, if I go forward and go backwards, I turn to my right, I move to my left, I shift to my left, I turn to my right, I keep my weight on my left, and I bring my weight to my right. I turn a little bit to the right so that I can pass through the correct plane of movement, and then it continues. So it's a constant getting your body to get this sort of harmonious motion and balance. And so that's what we struggle with. But once you get it in one posture, you can translate all of that stuff, that information, to another posture. And then eventually, if you do enough postures like that, your body starts to recognize that that's what it's supposed to do. That's part of why we evolved. That journey we're talking about is really getting your mind and your movements and your body to start to interpret, because your body builds this, what we call I call it the body intelligence. When your body gets smarter, it starts to know, and then, you know, it just happens. And over time, you'll evolve and you start to do these things that I talk about. But when I talk about it, it's really filling that empty vessel of information, and you house it there, and you draw off of it as your body starts to catch up with the motion. Because your body doesn't know, but once your body catches up with the idea and the concept that's filling that void or that vessel, then you start to understand what I'm really talking about. Because most of the time, it just becomes a piece of information that's, you know, just goes in there, and it could just stay there until your body discovers it, and then you have what they call the aha moment, when you discover that that's what it is. So a lot of athletes, a lot of people that do something over and over again discover this is what has to happen for me to get very precise, to get accuracy and motion. So it probably happens to golfers and, yeah. Yeah. So, uh, okay, so let's look in this mirror because I think that's further away. So we're here, right? So watch what happens. If I push off this leg to go to the toe, look what happens to the other leg. When you're pushing off, you have to release on this leg, and it shifts. Now, when I shift, here's the tricky part. I relax my elbow. If I go like this, that becomes two physical movements. Or I go like this, that becomes too physical. There's a break in there because the joints didn't work together. So when I'm here and I shift, I'm actually releasing my shoulder because I'm releasing my hip. You see what I mean? So once you push over, your center of mass is here, then you start to turn, and you're turning with the hip, and this goes in. So this comes together with the hand. And then this goes out with the leg. And then we sink, and then we lift. Yeah, because the body isn't aware of that. So now that you're aware of it, you practice it, it's going to change your approach. Yeah, so let's go from here, right? So this leg essentially yields to this. And then we square. But look what happens when we square. Everything settles down. And then we're here. So we're here, right? And then this goes out. And then we're doing this again. Turn. 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 And go forward. If we're going to raise the hand. And then we round out and then lift. And then we end up here. So all our movements are actually driven by our body, our torso, and what's happening from below. The arms become just sort of the feelers. Because when the body moves, the rest of you move too. So, in other words, if I'm here, and I go like this, you see my arm got there, right? And my hand is here. My hand got there too. See what I mean? So if I want to get my hand here, why go like this when I can go like this? Okay? And then I go like this, then I turn, and I turn. So I call that the manipulation of skeletal structure. Right? So you don't want to reach really because that's kind of an isolated movement and it's very physical. Like when you go to the market, if you reach and you reach and you reach, you could actually stumble. So why not walk up to the counter gradually, get your hand there, close, and then if you reach out, you can. But then when you go back, you sit back, and then you're moving. You know, that's just an exaggeration, but you can see why there's some logic to that. But if you understand that the body moves, everything else moves with it. But then you have to channel the motion through the pattern and geometry of position. Then your body moves efficiently, and ultimately we move for circulation. There's no other reason to move. I mean, there's functionality because you can do things with movement, but ultimately the movement is to create circulation because your musculature needs to create these little contractions, and it produces energy and it produces, so your system has to work like that. When you burn energy, you have to resupply it with nutrients, and then you have to breathe in order to get oxygen. So everything that's involved with that is involving your musculature. And what does the musculature do? It moves the parts. It moves the tissue. So, that's kind of what you go through learning this. So when I talk about, and we talk about the prevention of age-related degeneration, it involves the mind, it involves the body, it involves every system that your body is capable of using, and it all works as a system. And it's a system that has to work together. Otherwise, you develop conflicts in the body. It could turn into illness or aging and damaging of your joints, or a lot of things start to break down. Yeah. So yeah. Well, the fact that you come religiously, and a lot of other people do the same thing, they get something out of it. And we have a group of people that come several times a week, and like I said, they're all in their 70s, and the ones that are in their 80s are still a little bit concerned about the pandemic. So at some point after they get the vaccine, they're going to be returning. So by that time, things would have evolved. But anyways, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, it's not too late. You're probably way ahead of anybody that started it, in their 40s. That you could be 40 and not do it often, and it doesn't help you. You have to do it consistently, because consistency is the main thing. So you get people that say, well, I did it once a week for an hour for 20 years. That didn't do anything, because once a week you didn't even break the ice, I don't think. But that once a week is better than nothing. But okay, so it's about 11. So we went overtime. So we'll see you next time. Okay. Signing out. I got my Parkinson's in about 7 minutes, and mine is monitoring. This is streaming. Yeah, they don't come anymore. I don't know who does it. That's actually in the program, but I. Stand with the feet shoulder width. We're going to do a few limbering up exercises just to kind of limber up a little. And a lot of times I talk about when we do these movements, it's really trying to avoid the stiffness in the body, because when you don't move, the tendency is to become rigid. And, that's something that we try to avoid. Some of it might be because of stress. It could be partially because the body's just responding and it wants to kind of lock up. So, one way is to try to move, and if you can move, do it more often to try to avoid some of that level, because movement is a conscious effort. So if you put a bit of effort into knowing that this is what you need to do, then you use it as a crutch to avoid some of the things that's happening in your body. So that's just a suggestion. Does it work? The proof is in the pudding, so put it to action and see what happens. So this is just turning in a circle, and the hands are in a circle position. You put your hand like this and you bend to the side. So your body, I'm just having you move in the directions that your body should be capable of moving, and you can do it in 3 pulses. 1, 2, 3, and that gets you a little bit lower, by meaning that your body is tilting. And in the same case, when we do this, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So in the limbering up, it's not forceful, but you kind of create an action that involves your musculature. And you want to try your best to do this, depending on how coordinated and how flexible you are. And it really depends on how active you were or active you are now. Because the more active you are, the more ability you'll have in moving. Now, next thing we do is I stretch. And the stretching is going down your thigh and bending forward, releasing the tension in the back of the leg if you can. You move to your right, and you move to the left, and you go back up, and you inhale, exhale. Now, inhale and exhale, we do a lot of that because breathing really involves this area of your body, and if it's very tight, your breath is going to be pretty shallow. So we want to learn to inhale and exhale to get more of a diaphragmatic breath. And you inhale and exhale. It's as if you're breathing from your stomach, breathing from your abdomen. You're not actually breathing with your stomach, but it is a movement there that feels like that's what's happening. So it's just an idea so that you don't feel so restricted and that you think you're breathing from here. That's where your lung is expanding and contracting, but everything else has to do a little bit of a shift in here to get that to happen. So you inhale by lifting and exhale by pressing. So inhalation is up, exhalation is down. So let's lift up again. Let's reach down. 1, 2, 3, and you go to the right, and you go to the left, and you move to center. You inhale, and you exhale. Okay, let's spread the feet so we can move our feet by pivoting. You pivot your feet. So this is actually a simple exercise that you can do if you can coordinate your feet to do that. And it's actually one of the ways that I'll show you later that we change directions and how we set up the feet so that you can move where your toes are headed. And where your toes are headed is actually tied to where your knees are, okay? So we're going to turn like this, and we're going to loosen up the back again. The back is a very sensitive area for a lot of people. Some people have a lot of discomfort in the back, but moving gently like this, not forcefully. You're not trying to touch the mirror in the back. You're just kind of swinging and rotating. You can feel it in your back. Relax. avoid any conflict in the movement. Okay, good. Now let's pull the heels together. Now the feet are on 90 degrees. We're going to turn like that and then face this way. Then we're going to go forward and back, forward and back. So put your hands on your hips, forward and back, forward and back. So this works the two legs. You see one bends and one straightens and one bends. So that's the simplest way I can explain it, is that they're alternating. Now we pivot on the heel and then the toe. Then I pivot on the toe and then the heel. So you follow my feet. And then I go forward and back. And you bend toward, or try to put your toe over the knee, or the knee over the toe. And you alternate the knees. Then you turn back to the front, and then the toe, and then the heel. And you go forward and back, forward and back, and then we turn again, 1, 2. Now we also have this hand position like this. It's a triangle, and we move the hands like this. So if you've been following this at all, you would know that this is a neutral position. I call it a triangular position with a vertical elbow down. Okay. Now, if I turn toward this foot and I separate my hands, the fingertips on this hand and the toes are in line. Okay. Now, if I turn back to the center and I bring my hands back to a triangle position, I pivot on the toe and then the heel, and I separate the hands. We have the fingertip here and the toe here on the same side. If I pivot towards you like this and I go back to triangle position, so that's the two sides. So how do you know which is which side? When I turn this way, this is my left, it would be your right. If I go like this and I turn, this is my left leg, I just turn to my left. This is my right leg, and I turn toward my right. So in other words, my right hand and my right leg, my left leg and my left hand. So to give you the frontal view of that, if I go like this, you see I just pulled that in 45 degrees, and I brought this foot out. So this is my right side, my right hand. Bring this back, turn like this, move my left foot, your left, or your right, if this mirror image, and here's on the same side. So that gives you an idea that when the toe is up, you have this on each side. All right, but you can't be toe up simultaneously, because you'd have to go airborne to do that. You don't do this. So what we're trying to do is understand that there's a stance. This is a position, and you have a vertical hand here, and you have a vertical hand here. And if I'm over here, I'm just showing you the position on each side. It kind of gives you the idea, okay? So now we have this position. That's a circle. If I turn this way, and I'm in this stance, and I go forward, and I go back, and I go forward, and I go back, we see that this is the same side, and this is the same side. So while the fingertips are here pointing up and my toe is pointing up, when I go forward, my thumb is up on the same side that my toe is up. On the opposite side, I go to the other side. Here's my fingertip up and the toe up. I go to thumbs up position, and I go to the forward position. That's my horizontal elbow. This is my vertical elbow. If I turn back to the center, here's my triangle, and here's my circle. Okay. So that gives you, a basic understanding of right and left side, vertical elbow, and horizontal elbow. Okay, so that gives you those two positions, and then we also have the triangle position that's like this. So we open. And then we have an extended triangle where we open and the arms become square. So when your arms are extended, your arms are parallel. They could be facing each other or down. And then if I let my hands hang naturally down like that, when the hands are like this, you're actually in a direction of forward and backward. I won't go into those postures. I'll probably bring those in next session. So we could try to do 2 of those postures each time so that you have something to practice in between. All right, so that's basically vertical and horizontally, right and left side. And then I showed you the front view of that, where you're in the right side like this, and your thumb would be up like this. And then you're back to vertical, to horizontal. That's my right. So this foot is up, this hand is up, this thumb is up, and we go forward and back, and it goes back to neutral or vertical. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Just try to pick up on the footwork, hand positions, and work it. Actually, you could once you get the knack of it, you could do that every single day, because it's not really taxing. It's not very physical. It just takes a mental concentration and a focus on what you're seeing, and by doing that, we'll pick it up. We're creatures of habit, so you have to do it often enough. If you did it once a week like that, it'd take you forever to remember it, because once the video's off, it's gone. So you have to turn it on, watch it, go to it again and again and again. And after about half a dozen times of seeing it, you start to get familiar, and eventually you'll know it. Okay, now we have some circles that we have to deal with. So these are circles like this, right? And we do this a lot. Okay, so what is that? It's a circle like this on the right and left, or left and right. And then when we do this, it's both right and left going around. So if you bring your hands to vertical, then turn it outward and down, up and down, up and down. Once you build that pattern, the 2 circles, then you're going to do 1 on each side. 1, 2. And then eventually you're going to do them at the same time. So your goal is to get your hands doing this, and then eventually you'll know that it's called cloud hands. There is some turning of the torso, and that's why we do the exercise that we do as far as turning right and left, and you'll see the hands will be waving, okay? Now that's 2 circles. This is going out, and this is going out, and then they kind of follow each other around like this. Okay. Now the other thing we do is circles like this. So that's, to me, it's counterclockwise. This is clockwise. Okay. So if I turn around, you're going to see a circle clockwise and a circle counterclockwise. So what we're going to do is pull our feet together and take a step. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to step backwards. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's a pattern. You're going forward clockwise, meaning the arms. Forward, backwards is counterclockwise. Now I mentioned earlier that when we're in a shoulder width stance, your toes are pointing forward. I mean, some people have a tendency to have their feet kind of flared out like that. Try to get your feet as straight as possible, If the heels are together and you pivot on the balls of your feet, you end up in a shoulder width stance. This is a standing position that we do as a starting position for Tai Chi. Mostly all of our warm-ups are done from this specific stance. Now, if I pull my feet together, leaving about 2 or 3 inches as a gap, this is your walking position. So when we go like this, we're keeping our feet as close together, about 2 to 3 inches between the 2 feet. So maybe if you drew a center line right between your feet, you might have 1.5 inches on each side of that center line, meaning the center line to the edge of your inside of your foot. Okay, so this is the most efficient walking position to start with, because when you walk like that, maintaining and tracking that center line, you won't have such a waddling type thing where your feet are too wide. So start off learning to balance in the shoulder width stance and then go to this 3-inch position, and then step out to shoulder width and then go to 3-inch position, go to 3-inch position and then go back out and come back in and go back out. And if you do this often enough, if you want, you can put a piece of tape on the floor to see where it is. Or the other thing you do is you have a space in between the feet that's a little bit narrower than the width of your foot. Or if you prefer, depending how tall you are and how wide you are, you might just be 1 foot or 1 shoe width in between your feet. So if your shoe is that wide, that's the space between the feet. So that's just a gauge. You can use that as a guideline, and then you can practice working it like that. So the other thing that we do is this exercise for walking, and the hands are opposite. So before we did this on the same side, this is actually going to be opposite now. 1, 2. So this is the natural hand movement with your gait. This is how you have to get your hands coordinated. So you work your shoulders and you work your hip, essentially. And you can just slide your foot back and forth and feel that. So this essentially is going to sort of a Tai Chi stance, but let's just get the toe, 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 so you're keeping your weight here. And then we're going to go like this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you see it from the side view, right, I'm here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's just another exercise that kind of you build off of to get your hands swinging like this and your legs moving like this, because that's actually how we walk. And walking is a problem for some people with Parkinson's. It's a good idea to practice walking and understanding sort of the body mechanics involved with walking. And if you understand the concept and principles of what's involved in walking, then your tendency is, if you're freezing up and you're not sure what you're supposed to do next, you draw off of what you've learned. So you have to be very conscious of how this action happens. And it happens mainly by centering your body between your feet, and you shift your weight. And you have to shift your weight. Before I can move this foot, I have to carry my weight on this side. If I want to move this foot, I have to carry my weight on this side. So what is that? We have it as a shifting of weight from side to side. Okay, so that's a wide shift, shoulder width. So that gives you more of an experience, but it does take a little flexibility in the hip. Now when you're here and it's closer, the distinction in the shift is much less and less obvious, but it does happen. It's much more minute. And when you shift over to carry the load, it's such a subtle shift that it's not apparent that you're actually doing that. So because it's not apparent that you're doing that, you may not realize that when you're stuck in this position, you can't move because you can't move your weight in the right direction, because you're 50-50. In a 50-50 position, you can't move either foot. So if you take a little bit of weight off, that's what has to happen. If I want to move this foot and I'm stuck here, I have to shift my weight and then it moves here. So shifting a weight, there's different ways of approaching how to shift, but mainly it's kind of swaying a little to right to left to get your body there. The forward and backward shift is really projection. You have to project forward, and there's really kind of a push off the back toe or the back foot till you carry your weight and you push off. So your body, if it's tense, is going to have a little bit of trouble doing that. So that's why we need to do this, 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 and this. And all of those is going to supplement how you can practice to be a better walker, how you can move locomotively in a direction much easier. That is the basic walk going forward. Backwards a little bit different. We did that in 3-step. And then turning the corner, which I've gone over many times, is like when we're here, pivot on the heel, take you in a direction, and then take your next step. Okay? If the feet are together here, you pivot on the heel of the direction that you're going. If I'm going this way, I pivot this foot. If I'm going this way, I pivot this foot. So that's all you have to practice to get to understand that that's where I'm going. And then once you pivot and then you transfer the weight, here you are, you're ready to take that next step. And you're ready to take that next step. Happens on both sides. Those are really sort of foundation fundamentals to mobility and walking. It's how we do it in Tai Chi, how we shift weight. I'm just extracting the concepts that we use in Tai Chi to try to give you that level of consciousness and how you actually have to go through these really simple exercises, but maybe it's not simple when you're first trying it, but they're very simple because there's not a lot of sequential things happening at this point. Learning Tai Chi format and form and is very complicated and probably too difficult for you to remember without the experience. So do these first and hopefully it's helpful. Okay, I'll see you next time. February the schedule may change, but we have a lot of archive videos. It's Tai Chi Paradigm for Parkinson's, and continue to watch it. Hope it's helpful and do it as much as you can, as often as you can. But when I say do it as much as you can, I don't mean do it for hours and hours. Do it regularly, meaning 10 or 15 minutes once a day. That's not really a whole lot. Don't do more than sort of 12 or 10 or 12 to 20 repetitions of these type of things. And believe it or not, if you did this just 20 times, your body will learn it over time. So after a few weeks of doing it every day, you probably will improve a lot. Okay?